Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there friends, welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro, and today in the Bible Bistro we're looking at Psalm 38 beginning in verse 5 through verse 8. I said yesterday that this is a combination of prayers and confessions. So we go from prayer to confession, from prayer to confession, from prayer to confession. Well, actually, we end with prayer, so there's a confession and statement of condition inserted between those two. And today we're looking at his condition. He states some more about his condition for us. We begin in verse 5 with the end of this recognition of his sin. So let's go back and, well, first of all, let me read verses 5 through 8, and then we're going to go back and pick up verse 3 again and read into verse 5. So 5 through 8, my wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. I am troubled, I am bowed down greatly, I go mourning all the day long. My loins are filled with a loathsome disease. There is no soundness in my flesh. I am feeble and sore broken. I have roared by reason of the disquietness of my heart. So we notice in verse 5 it says, my wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. Now this is a part of his confession or recognition of the sin that has troubled him. So we go back up to verse 3. He says, there's no soundness in my flesh because of thine anger, neither is there any rest in my bones because of my sin. So God's anger is directed at his sin. My iniquities have gone over my head as a heavy burden. They are too heavy for me. Okay, so he's confessing sin and iniquity. And then in 5, my wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. So sin, iniquity, and foolishness. What has David done? Well, perhaps this is sometime after his sin, his great sin with Uriah's wife. He had Uriah killed. He took his wife. He committed adultery with her before he killed Uriah. And then, of course, there was an illegitimate child that was born. So all of this may have come about because of that. When he mentions that sin, iniquity, and foolishness, well, we can only imagine what it could be because of the history that we have in the scriptures. But it's something has happened, some sin that he has not yet confessed, and now he's come to that place because of my foolishness. Now he's telling us about it. You'll notice in verse 5 it says, my wounds stink and are corrupt. What has he done and what has happened to him? If the wounds stink and are corrupt, he said then in 3, there's no soundness in my flesh. And I hope you noticed in verse 7, that same phrase is repeated. There is no soundness in my flesh. He says in 7, my loins are filled with a loathsome disease. Well, something bad's going on here with David. And also you'll notice how he mentions there in verse 8 that he is roared by reason of the disquietness of my heart. Anybody who's been really sick or really injured understands how the depression and the anxiousness about the sickness creeps into the soul and disquiets the heart. Sometimes the sickness is the only thing you can focus on. It is so large in your eyes, so large in your heart, that's all you can see. And so David, he takes his eyes off of that just for a moment, and he comes to the Lord and he says, please don't rebuke me in your wrath and don't chasten me in your hot displeasure. I've sinned. Here it is. I've sinned. I've done iniquity. It's too heavy for me. I cannot bear this. I have wounds that stink. They're corrupt. My loins are filled with a loathsome disease. And then he says that it has crept into the soul when he says, the disquietness of my heart. Wow, he is really in trouble. And he even says that in 6. He says, I'm in trouble, I'm bowed down greatly, I go mourning all the day long. Listen, if you're sick like that, friend, if that's all you can see, call on the Lord today. Try to forget just for a moment the disquietness of your heart and call out to the Lord and ask Him not to rebuke you in His wrath. Would you call on Him today? Join me again tomorrow. We'll look then at verses 9 through 12 here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.